Hi guys, my name's Donald and I'm a zoologist who has been lucky enough to have worked on some jobs all around the world. What I'm going to be discussing today is a wolf project that I was lucky enough to be involved with over in the foothills of the Canadian Rockies back in the summer of 2009 when I spent 6 months out there. During this period we were researching 4 different wild wolf packs that were found in the area. For this 6-month period we were based in a wee place called Nordegg, which is in the state of Alberta, but it's quite close to the state border with British Columbia, and as I said, it's in the foothills of the Canadian Rockies, so it had some stunning scenery around us, as you can see in this second photo here. The project was being run by the University of Edmonton, which is where I flew in and out of, and you can see Edmonton just on the map up here. And it was a friend of mine called Pete who was doing this research as part of his master's study into the behaviour of wild wolves. For the study, Pete had arranged for wolves from these 4 different packs to be fitted with a radio collar. And the way you capture the wolves to do this is they actually chase them down in a helicopter. They follow the wolves for quite a long period of time sometimes, and then they'll net gun them. So they'll shoot a net from the helicopter to go over the wolves, and then they'll land the helicopter and they'll get out and they'll sedate the wolf, and then they'll fit the collar, and then the wolf is okay afterwards. So it's a pretty crazy procedure doing the capturing the wolves to put the collars on them. This is actually a picture of my friend here, Pete, as I said, who's originally from Yorkshire, and he studied at Edinburgh University here, but we actually met each other over in Tanzania when I was over on a project there, and we've stayed friends ever since. This is him here with a wolf they've just captured, and they're putting a collar on it, and it's actually his parents there who are with him, who came out to visit him from Yorkshire. This wolf will be fine, will totally recover, and it'll join the pack and move around with the pack again. But once these collars are fitted, as you can see in the second photo here, it allows us to follow the movement of this wolf and then follow the behaviour of the pack. As I said in the previous slide, by putting these collars on wolves and other wild animals, it gives us a really good insight into their natural behaviour, the areas they're covering when they're looking for food, the areas they have for the size of the territory. So you can see in this map here there's these different colours, and that just shows you the different wolf packs, sort of the territories they cover, and they'll cover huge distances that we've been able to find out by these collars that gives us the data about where they're moving. So to allow us to see where the collared wolf and the rest of the pack had been, every few weeks we needed to download the data that was stored in this collar. This meant we had to get within a couple of 100 metres of that wolf wearing the collar. To do this, we would use a process called telemetry, which meant we would hold up this radio transmitter. So you can see me here, and you can see my friend Lonnie doing it here in the snow. And we would move around this radio transmitter, and when it was pointing at the wolf wearing the collar, we would get a beep, and the closer we got to the wolf, the stronger that beep, the stronger the signal we'd get. But we might have to spend days tracking these wolves down to do this, because as I say, they cover such a huge distance, you know, and we would do it by a process of triangulation. So you go to one point, and then if you see they've got it into that direction, then you sort of drive up to another point, and then if it's pointing that way, and then to a third point, and then you can kind of narrow down your area where you know the wolves are through this process called triangulation, through this telemetry. But as I said, it could take us days to get this data sometimes. We would be holding these transmitters up in all these places looking for it. But we'd be listening for this beep, and then as I said, once we got close enough, we would move in and we would be able to download the data, and then we'd be able to track where the wolves had been for the previous 2-week period. As we were getting closer and closer to where the wolves were, we would find more and more fresh signs of them. So this would be through the tracks here, and you can see it's pretty big a wolf track there. There's my friend Celia's hand up against it, and you can see how big it is. And then yeah, you would also find fresh scat or poo. You know, if you find really fresh poo, they would have been there pretty recently, and it's also sitting on the snow here, so you know it's pretty fresh, and they've probably been there within the last day anyway. That poo probably means they've been there within the last few hours. So through these fresh tracks and fresh poo, we knew we would be getting close to the pack and we'd be closing in on them. The focus of the research was we were trying to find out the predation rates of these wolves during the summer period. So as I say, when we downloaded this data, we could see where they had been through the last 2-week period, and if they'd spent more than 15 minutes in any areas, we would go to these points and we would check out to see if we could find any signs of any predated animals they had taken down. Sometimes you would just find they'd lain down and they'd had a bit of a sleep, you know, you'd see the vegetation pushed down and find some of the wolf hair and the things, but a lot of the time we would get lucky, and as I said, we would find these signs of kills. So we would try and ID what type of animal they had taken down, whether it was an elk. Sometimes they would take down just small stuff like beavers and even squirrels if it was just a sort of solitary lone wolf, but then sometimes they would take down really big moose and elk. So we would go and we would study these sites to see, okay, what are they actually eating? So if my friend Andrew here has found quite a big kill site, and you can see the hoof, and they've taken all the meat off these leg bones and things. Another way to discover what the wolves had been eating was to analyse their poo. So whenever we were walking about and we would see wolf poo, we would collect it and we would put it in bags, and then we would send it off to labs to get analysed. Luckily, I didn't have to do the analysing of this. I have done analysing of a lot of other poo in labs. It's a really good method for zoologists to study animals with being non-invasive, is by looking at their poo. So I've picked up a lot of different animals' poos, from seals and also here to wolf poo. So yeah, you can see the wolf poo here. It would often have the hair in it from some of the deer and elk that they had taken down. Sometimes you'd even find bits of hoofs and bits of bone that had passed through the wolf's digestion system in the poo, or the scat, they call it its scientific name. Wolves are amazing hunters. They're a top predator. They're really good at working together to be able to take down prey that's much larger than them. So up here you've got a picture of a moose that you see in North America, a lot of moose in Canada. But a fully grown moose is a huge animal, way bigger than the male red deer that we have here in Scotland. It's about 3 to 4 times larger than an adult wolf. But by working together in the pack, the wolf pack can take this down. What they'll do, they'll tire these animals out first of all. They'll chase them, sometimes for days at a time. They'll chase them. They'll try to separate one of them from the herd, and then they'll chase this animal down and down. And one wolf in the pack will take a go at chasing it, then it will take a rest, but another wolf will come in and lead the chase, and then it will go back and take a rest. So that the wolves are getting a rest, but the prey they're chasing never gets a rest. And then eventually they'll get it to a place where the moose or the elk can't run anymore, and you can see that in the sort of footprints here. And then the wolves will go in for the kill, and what will happen, you can see in the footprints here, one will attack it from one side, the moose or the elk, whatever, it will try and defend that one, but then another wolf will come in at the other side, and then another one at the other side, and so there's just too many attacks coming at it, and it's getting so tired that eventually it can't defend itself, and the wolves are able to kill it, and then they're able to feast on it. Through our research, we were finding out that wolf packs were taking down a big elk or a big moose around once a week, or maybe once every 5 days, just depending on the size of the pack. During this time, they might also predate on some smaller prey, maybe smaller deer, and like I say, sometimes they would even take stuff down as small as like a beaver or a squirrel if they could catch it, but that would often just be one single wolf taking that. Wolves belong to the family of mammals that are called canids. This also includes red foxes that you might see around your houses, and actually all domestic dog species. Wolves are top predators, like I mentioned in the last slide, and they've got these sharp canine teeth that you can see in the top slide up here, which they use for ripping the meat off the bone. But they've also got these molars, which they can crush the meat, and they can even crush bones with these molar teeth to get at the marrow inside the bones. So they can get really strong teeth for crushing down the bones and the meat. The first dogs were actually domesticated by humans. Were wolves. It was wild wolves that the first hunter-gatherers, when we still lived in Stone Age times, and they domesticated wolves to help them hunt, and also to maybe help guard their camps. So all dog species that you find these days have actually evolved from wolves. So you've got a few different types of dogs. So you can see the chain from a wild wolf on one side to a pug down here. how much they've changed through the breeding that people have done with them. In our research to find out where these wild wolves had been, we had to cover huge distances. One way we did this, we had quad bikes that we would go to be able to take us on these little off-road forest trail tracks, or sometimes they weren't really even tracks at all, but the quad bikes were pretty good for getting us to really remote, hard to access areas. So yeah, they were also pretty good fun to play around on, I would say. So we would often, as I say, cover these huge distances. So we would have our trucks, and then we would have these trailers which we had the quad bikes attached on at the back, and then when we got to an area where we couldn't go any further in the trucks, we would unload the quad bikes, and then we would go into these areas with the quad bikes. However, the wolf would go to areas that we couldn't even access with quad bikes. So then we would leave the quad bikes and we would go in hiking on foot. So we did a lot of hiking on foot. We covered a lot of distance just walking, using our maps and using GPSs we had. So you can see us here. This is the top left corner here with the snow. That was probably quite soon after we first arrived in April, when there was quite a lot of snow around. But then if we moved further into the summer period over there, it got really pretty warm. We didn't need the big jackets on. You can see I'm pretty cold there as I'm zipping up my jacket. We could actually even sleep outside, because sometimes we would camp in these really remote areas, because we were covering such huge distance. We would have tents on our back. We would just set up a remote field camp for the night, stay there, and then we would carry on tracking where the wolves had been the next day. One of the things we had to be most aware of when working in these really remote areas was bears. There was grizzly and black bears living in the areas, and these bears would actually also be attracted to the carcasses of the prey that the wolves had taken down, that we were going to look to investigate. Because the bears, they've got an amazing sense of smell, and they could smell this meat, and then they would want to go and scavenge on the meat that they could smell. So they were actually being attracted to the same thing we were going to go and investigate. So we got taught to make a lot of noise whenever we were moving through these areas. Whenever we were hiking through the woods, we had to make a lot of noise. So we would sing songs, we would shout out, we had bells on our bags, so we were just making sure we were always making a lot of noise, because the idea is that if you make a noise, the bear will be aware of your presence and it actually scares it off. Bears are actually more scared of humans than we are of them, and so if they hear you coming, they'll move out of an area before you get there. The worry with the bear is if you surprise it, and then when it's scared, it might go and attack you. Or if you ever get in the way of in between a bear mum and its cubs, it would then also attack you, because they're really protective of their cubs. So we had to be really aware of this. We actually carried around with us the whole time bear spray, as you can see in the corner up here. It's a bit like pepper spray, really. And the idea with this, if a bear ever did charge us, you would, when it was a couple of meters away, you would spray this in their eyes to give you a chance to get away. Luckily, none of us ever had to use this, but we were very aware of the presence of bear the whole time. Last picture here is just a bear scat, or a bear poo, and you know, you can see in this, bear poo is really big, and you've seen fresh bear poo around, you kind of knew, okay, we've got to be really careful here. They're omnivorous bears, so they eat a lot of berries, roots, as well as the meat that they would scavenge off the wolf kill. The picture here is actually this bear. It's a grizzly bear here, or a brown bear, and it's actually got a collar on it as well, so it looks like somebody was researching these. When there was friends of Pete at the University of Edmonton that were doing research into bears, so this might be one of his bears here. So when I was over working on the wolf project, it was the summertime, so we didn't actually have to use any of these snowmobiles, but these are some photos Pete's sent me when he's doing his research up in the Yukon in the winter time, because actually in the winter is a really good time for research on wolves, because you can track them a little bit easier in the snow. So Pete, uses these snowmobiles to get around the massive areas he covers for them. You can see here he's got their snowmobile stuck a little bit in some pretty deep snow, but he also does a lot of cross-country skiing to be able to track where the wolves have been up there in the Yukon. One of the things we were looking at in our study on these wolves during the summertime was how many pups was each pack raising, because the number of pups it would be raising would affect how much prey they would be taking down. It's only the alpha male and the alpha female of each pack that will breed and have pups every year. None of the other wolves in the pack breed and have pups, just the alpha male and the alpha female. When another wolf gets to an age that it wants to breed, it might either fight the alpha male or female, depending on what it is, to try and take the top spot in the pack, or it might disperse and try to form its own pack somewhere else. But yeah, these are some pictures of the wolf pups, which are pretty cute. Very cute, actually. When I was over in Canada back in 2009, the way we would find out how many pups each pack had, we would try to get into the den. We'd actually have to crawl into the den to see how many pups were there. We had to do this before the pups got too old, so it was like usually when they were within a month, because after that the pack will move them about really a lot. So you need to try and find this out before they get over a month old. So yep, as I said, we would actually literally crawl into the den. So you can see a photo of one of, I think that's Pete going into the den there. I sent him in first. Making sure everyone's okay. Got a rope there in case we have to pull anybody out. And you've got a little pup in the den there, and then you've got a picture of me just after I've come out the den. Pretty mucky. It was quite an experience, yeah, crawling and really narrow the entrance to get in, and then it turned around the corner, and then there was a bigger open area where you could see the pups in there. So yeah, it was quite an experience crawling into a wolf den. So here is a wee video that Pete made when he actually crawled into a den where there was actually an adult wolf in the den at the time. So just see if I can play this video. Oh, here we go. You can see the adult wolf in there, really watching him carefully, and if you look carefully you'll see at least one of the pups behind it. Though you can see just one of the pups there, but the adult is still no, he's there. I think that was it telling him to get away. Nowadays, zoologists make a lot more use of motion cameras to study and gain information on wild animals. Motion cameras, the technology has improved and the cost of them has reduced a lot from what it was when I was over in Canada in 2009. They've become a lot more reliable. You can get a lot better images from them than you could back then. So these are some images Pete has got from a motion camera that he set up next to the den of a wolf pack that he was researching up in the Yukon. These are photos from last summer that he sent me. To the first photo here, you've got the alpha female coming out of the den. Just having a look around, and the camera's caught her just as she came out of the den. And then in the second photo here, you've got the cubs when they first came out of ground, when they first came out of the den. So Pete thought they were about 4 to 5 weeks old when the motion camera got this image of the pups when they first came above ground. It's quite a cool pack, Pete says, because the vast majority of them have black fur. And you can see it even in the pups here. Out of these 4 pups, 3 of them have black fur, 1 of them's got grey, white fur. And in the adults, it's only 2 of them that have white or grey fur, and one of these is this alpha female that you can see in the other photo. Here's just a few more images that Pete has got from motion cameras that he's set up by the dens of packs that he's researching up in the Yukon. So this is a different pack that he's researching here, different den site. You can see there's 3 of them adults there are sort of playing about. Looks like one of them's having a bit of a howl there. Then there's the wolf that's a bit nearer the front. You can actually see that one's got the collar on it. So that's the one that they're using to track this pack here. So this is the same den site, but in this image you've got the cubs, really pretty young looking here. So again, probably the first time they've come above ground in this photo perhaps. Yep, you can see at least 5 cubs I count there. Again, predominantly got black fur, these ones, which is quite cool to see. But yep, you can see the motion camera lets us count the number of cubs without having to disturb the pack so much by crawling in the den. And this is the last image from this camera that he had in this pack. I just made it a bit smaller so my face doesn't cover it, because you can see it's actually the collared wolf here. Looks like the alpha female because she's suckling her pups. You can see they're suckling under her there. Remember, wolves are mammals like us, so they feed their young through milk that they can produce through their mammary glands. So yeah, this is probably the alpha female because she's the only one that would have pups, and you can see she's suckling them there. Okay, last slide, just a cool image Pete sent me of one of the packs, quite a big pack this, that he's researching up in the Yukon. Just yeah, I hope you enjoyed learning about wolves. I think they're amazing animals. Feel really lucky to have been able to have got over and seen them and studied them in the wild, and hoping I'll be able to get over and join Pete in the Yukon to see some of these guys again soon. But if you've got any questions, just let me know, and yeah, hope you enjoyed that. Thanks guys, bye.